Auto scaling update strategies. So this lecture will really show you that what kind of decisions you have to make as a solution architect. Okay, so what kind of implication it has on the very simple thing, such as how to update an application in an auto scaling group. You may think like this is simple. So we have our clients connected to application load balancer. Yep. That application load balancer redirects traffic to our auto scaling group, which is currently running all our EC2 instances on these same launch templates. So we would like to do is to update our auto scaling group. And for now, that we'll actually do is to have a new launch configuration. This is the way we want to update it. Okay, so let's see all the options we have and what they mean in terms of architecture and implications for the way you are rolling out your application as a game. If you want to stop the video right now, just pause it and then draw something on a sheet of paper. Like I asked you to find how many ways you can update this auto scaling group. How many ways you can update this auto scaling group? What kind of strategy you have, and then what kind of architectures are coming up through it with. If you don't, that's okay, but still try to write it on the paper. Okay, so time's up. Now we are saying the architecture. So let's get started. So the first thing is that we may want to keep that auto scaling group. So we keep the auto scaling group, but we are going to create a new launch template. What this will do is that it will go ahead and create new EC2 instances that are launched using the new launch templates, and we may need to double the capacity of our auto scaling group for these instances to be created. So in the meantime, because they belong to the same auto scaling group, they will belong to the same target group. Okay, so the application load balancer will redirect requests to all these two instances at the same time. So we have both versions of our application sending data and responding to our application load balancer request. So this is fine, and then we are done. We can terminate the EC2 instances of our launch template number 1, and if we are confident enough that our version number 2 is working great, so this is one way of doing things, and I think it works great. Okay, but here you have to realize that you have the same target group. Traffic is going to be spread across all your versions. So that's number 1. So number 2 is, okay, we have the same architecture. We have our first auto scaling group, but now we decided to create a new auto scaling group. Alongside creating this new auto scaling group, we are creating a second target group. So now we have our EC2 instances with a launch templates on V2. We are able to do the ALB level traffic split between the different two target groups. So it's possible for us in this case to just send a small amount of traffic to the auto scaling group 2 version 2, and just to test it out from the ALB side, application load balancer side, and see if our new application is working fine. If it is, then we can slowly shift traffic between the two target groups, and then eventually we retire the first target group. The beautiful thing is here is that the clients still access the only one application load balancer, so there's no caching issue on the K inside with the AL application load balancer is the one thing that is splitting traffic, shifting traffic from your first auto scaling group to your second auto scaling group. So there's a different solution architecture, and this is also been called as the immutable deploy, blue-green deployers, and the rolling with additional batch deployers. So the first one is you can even say the rolling with additional batch and the immutable, but the additional batch is the complete infrastructure. Okay, immutable deploy is the similar, and the blue-green deployment as of the second one you can consider as you are creating the complete infrastructure, copying the infrastructure. We are not copying the each, but it is somewhat similar. Okay, on the somewhat same scale. I'm sorry for this interruption, but I have been running for around like 4 or 5 hours recording these lectures. So number 3 here is the more complex one that we will be seeing the next slide. This one. So we have our application load balancer number 1 that is linked to our auto scaling group with our EC2 instances and launch template version 1. We'll do is that we'll create an entirely new auto application load balancer and an entirely new auto scaling group. So with the launch template number 2, the idea is now we have two very independent type of architectures. So what we need to do is to make sure the clients can talk to our second ALB, and for this we can use Route 53. So we'll define a CNAME and we can use weighted records. So when the clients makes a DNS query, is going to get both application load balancer based on the weight. So the client will be doing some load balancing. So part of our clients will be sending traffic to application load balancer number 2, application load balancer number 2, and the part of our clients will be sending traffic to the application load balancer number 1. So that would allow us to have a small amount of traffic going on to ALB, application load balancer number 2. The problem here is that we are relying on the clients being well behaved, okay, and making DNS queries and respecting the TTL. So we have to do a slow migration slowly. So there is some risk here that bad behaving clients will still be taking to our application load balancer number 1, even though we have told them to switch to the application load balancer number 2 with the Route 53. The advantage through this architecture is that we are able to independently test the application load balancer number 2 before we put it in service at the Route 53 level. Okay, so it's possible for us to set up test clients to do some manual testing, to do some load testing on their architecture, making sure everything is great before we have our client to do some load balancing and switch from application load balancer 1 slowly transitioning to application load balancer 2. So what I want here to show you as part of this lecture is that there's not only one way of doing things in AWS. The kind of architectures you are going to choose depends on how you feel about complexity or the requirements of your solution architecture, how you want to update your application, and how many components do you want to involve in it. So through this one example, I want to show you that in the exam, it is very likely that you have multiple answers that are going to be good. Multiple answers will be correct at the exam, but one of those will be the most appropriate based on what you are trying to achieve. And this is what you have to identify, and this is what makes this solution architect professional exam very, very tricky. But I hope that was helpful for this lecture. I hope all of it makes sense. And you are thinking more like a solution architect now, and I will see you in the next lecture.